said, thanks everybody for joining tonight's Draft Master Plan Town Hall. My name is Musa. I'm a Vice President with the Concourse Federal Group. We're a service-disabled, veteran-owned small business supporting VA with the Draft Master Plan. Tonight we have a dedicated town hall focusing solely on the Draft Master Plan. So I want to cover a few ground rules. I'll give you a high-level overview of tonight's town hall, and then we can get started. For ground rules, if you're interested in asking a question after the presentation, I'd ask that you grab a number from the table when you walked in. What we'll do is we'll bring a box up here, randomly pick a number. When we call out that number, go ahead and stand up. We'll have runners with mics who will come up to you, give you a mic so you can ask your question. What I would note is that there is a 3-minute time limit for your question. So if you exceed that, I'll go ahead and ask you to close out. We'll address your question. If there's further follow-up required, we can take it separately. I'd also like to really drill down on the fact that this is a town hall dedicated solely to the Draft Master Plan. So if you have questions about benefits, comp, pension, healthcare, things like that, this is not the forum for that. However, we have folks here. If you have an issue, we can take it offline and make sure we let you know the appropriate forum and how we can appropriately address your concerns. For the format, what we're going to do is a very brief presentation, a handful of slides on some key high-level updates on the Draft Master Plan, and then we're going to pull some of our VA team onto the stage for a panel questions and answers. So really the timing is we're trying to wrap up the briefing in about 15 minutes and then use the remaining 75 minutes for questions and answers. So a last reminder to grab a number if you haven't already. That way we can do that random selection for questions. For the presentation, we're going to run through a few items. We'll give some background and context under the assumption that most folks who are here for this town hall are familiar with the Draft Master Plan, but we want to make sure we give the context. We'll also go over the vision of the Draft Master Plan. We'll provide some key updates in areas of land use, permanent supportive housing, environmental historic due diligence, Purple Line Extension Project. Then VA and Vets Advocacy will provide an update on Triple H funding. We'll talk about upcoming meetings that are open to the public, and then we'll turn it over to the panel and turn it over to everybody in the audience to ask questions. All that being said, I'll introduce some folks who are going to present on the various slides, and then once we're done with the presentation, I'll introduce everybody who's going to stand on the panel. They'll join me up here on the stage. I'll MC it so that when the questions come in, I'll call the number out, you go ahead and ask the question, and I'll pass it to the right person on the panel. All that being said, I'd like to introduce Ms. Ann Brown. She is the Greater Los Angeles Healthcare System Director, and she'll cover the first slide.
I'm not as tall as Ian. And I brought this, I know I only have 15 minutes, but I brought all of this to talk to y'all about. But Ian only lets me talk about this slide, which most of you have already seen. It does provide why we're here today. This is a little bit of a different meeting than we normally host here in the Wadsworth, but it's great to see all of you here, and thank you for coming and showing your interest in what's going on with the Draft Master Plan and helping us frame what that's going to look like and create the reality for homeless veterans here in the Los Angeles area. So I'm going to say the stuff you already know, that the West LA campus is of course part of the Greater Los Angeles VA healthcare system, and the West LA campus is on 388 acres here at the intersection of Wilshire and the 405s, Traffic Central. In 1888, the United States received a donation of the land from Senator John P. Jones and Arcadia DeBaker. And throughout the 1970s, we did have housing on the campus, but then the environment changed and what we used the land for changed. And it wasn't for the good. So in 2011, the ACLU of Southern California filed a class action lawsuit against the VA on behalf of homeless veterans with disabilities, because here we are on this great piece of property and we weren't doing enough for the epidemic of homelessness that has LA as its epicenter. And then in 2015, the then Secretary McDonald signed an agreement settling the litigation and committing the VA to work together with our plaintiff partners in the community to draft and implement a master plan to redevelop the West LA campus. So yeah, I think I heard some applause. So that was a good thing. And of course, we want to make sure that the housing we provide on the campus is for the most disabled, the ones, because we do have the most complex medical center in the country right here on this campus, VA. Right here on this campus, we want to make sure that we provide care to the most disabled, those that are most needy of the care, to have it here on the campus close to the medical center. And then in 2016, Secretary McDonald adopted the draft master plan, which was produced with between the VA and the plaintiff's partners, which gets us here where we are today, 2 years later, a year after the legislation that gave us the ability to do what we need to do passed. And we're here today to tell you what's been going on in that year and where we see things going in the future, and how we're going to continue to work with the community to make it all happen. So thanks for coming to advocate for our homeless veterans, to help us decide and help us guide where we're taking this tremendous asset here in West LA to make it the home for our nation's heroes.
Thanks, Ann. I'd like to introduce Ms. Meghan Flanz. She is the Executive Director of the Master Plan.
Okay.
I don't recall signing on for stairs, but here I am. Well, it's wonderful to see all of you come out. I am so thrilled to be here. I'm actually back in Los Angeles, born and raised in LA. My grandfather's buried at the cemetery across the road there. So this is home for me, and I am just thrilled to be back to take on this new challenge of leading all of our collective efforts in implementing the vision that is our draft master plan. And as Ann said about her slide, I suspect most of you in this room are familiar with most of the points on this slide, but just wanted to frame the context for those of you who may not remember or may not be familiar. The draft master plan supports a vision to revitalize the 388-acre property, in particular this North Campus. And at the center of it is a plan to provide 1,200 units of permanent supportive housing with services wrapped around that to promote health, job training, recreation, families, childcare, all of the things that are necessary to provide a true home and village and neighborhood for our heroes right here on this campus. The vision of the master plan does take into account the fact that many of the structures on this campus are historic and are in need of restoration and revitalization, and we want to be respectful of the history on this campus while also bringing the services and the buildings up to code and to the level of service that befits our mission here of caring for heroes. The master plan also contemplates a town center where veterans, either those who live on the campus or those who don't live on the campus, can come together, can learn from each other, can socialize, can dream, and can have the kind of fellowship that a campus like this facilitates. And the master plan also contemplates some enhancements to the patient care activities that have been going on both on the North and the South campus. The West Los Angeles Leasing Act, which Ann alluded to, was passed in 2016 and provides the VA with some of the necessary legal authorities around enhanced use leasing, which is the mechanism that we use to partner with private sector entities to provide services that VA cannot provide on its own. And the target population, as I think Ann alluded to, is the chronically homeless, the aged veterans, the disabled veterans, female veterans with dependents, those folks who are in greatest need of housing and supportive services right here in West LA. So again, I am thrilled to be part of the team and to work with you all and all of the folks in the greater Los Angeles area who share our vision of a true village and neighborhood for veterans right here on our campus.
Thanks, Meghan. Next up is a quick land use update I'll provide it. So we have the director of the National Cemetery, Mr. Tom Rupp, here. What we want to do is call out some of the things that have happened here. The first being Phase 1B of the Columbarium expansion project. Groundbreaking was held in November of 2017. So that's tremendous. That's on the North Campus near the UCLA Jackie Robinson Stadium. Additionally, just a visual here of some of the land use agreements and the progress that has been made. What I would note is this is not the holistic universe. These are just some of the land use agreements that are called out more frequently, so we wanted to put it here on display. We also have this information on the Draft Master Plan website and the more comprehensive list of the land users here on the campus. A visual here that we have is, hopefully all of you have noticed that Tumbleweed Transportation, they had about 194 buses here on the campus in 2 different lots on the South Campus, has since vacated, so those lots have been cleared. So yeah, and you can see what agreements have been renegotiated. I'd also call out 2 other ones just very quickly. 1887 Fund, we may have folks from the 1887 Fund here tonight. It's a federally recognized nonprofit partnering with VA to restore 5 historic subject structures on the campus, the first being the Wadsworth Chapel. So earlier this week we finalized a letter of intent between the 1887 Fund and the VA to continue that partnership by which the 1887 Fund would raise the money to restore those 5 subject structures. The last thing I wanted to call out was the signature from DAV California and VA and Brightburn for donation of 2.5% overriding royalties, where Brightburn Oil and Gas, they oversee the oil area, the oil rig on the campus. They're actually donating the overriding royalties to DAV California for the sole purpose of enhancing transportation on and around the West LA campus for veterans. So, really great stuff. I'll also provide a quick update on enhanced use leases and permanent supportive housing. So I know everyone has seen this visual before and have heard the current status. So really just want to call out 2 items. The first being Building 209. Building 209, the first enhanced use lease, the first permanent supportive housing that opened on the campus. It opened in June of 2017. And we have 54 units of permanent supportive housing that's housing currently the most chronically homeless veterans. So tremendous win. I think that probably deserves the biggest round of applause. And the second I want to call out is buildings 205 and 208. That will be the next enhanced use lease, and again, the next opportunity for permanent supportive housing. So developer and service provider were selected in June of 2017, and we're moving forward on getting that up and running. Next up, I want to provide a quick update on environmental historic due diligence. I'll ask Mr. Glenn Elliott, environmental engineer coming out of VA's Central Office, Construction, Facilities Management.
Still the same either. Good evening. My name is Glenn Elliott. This slide just gives you a status update on the environmental and historic compliance associated with the draft master plan. Kind of gives you a status and how we've moved along in the process. May of 2017, we issued the Notice of Intent regarding the West LA Draft Master Plan Programmatic and Environmental Impact Statement and the Programmatic Impact Report. That covers the NEPA and CEQA, which is the national and then the state environmental regulations that apply. The PEISPR will study the entire 388-acre campus. That is the entirety of this. Both beneficial and detrimental effects in the redevelopment required by the National Environmental Policy Act, the National Historic Preservation Act, and the California Environmental Quality Act. The PEIS-PER, the initial studies and analysis are currently underway. VA anticipates releasing the draft PEIS-PEIR for public comment in late 2018. As you can see along the bottom, those are the steps that we're following through in this process. As I mentioned before, the notice of intent has already taken place. Scoping meetings happen in this very building shortly thereafter. And then the next step will be the draft PEIS-PEIR. At that point in time, there'll be meetings probably held again here that'll involve public hearings, public comment. Then we'll get into the final PEIS-PEIR and hopefully a record of decision. Thank you.
Thanks much, Glenn. Next up, a high-level update on the Purple Line Extension Project. I will invite Andrew Strain from the Concourse Federal Group to provide a high-level update.
Thanks, Ian. I'm Andrew Strain with Concourse Federal Group. Just for a high-level update, so Section 3 of Metro's proposed Purple Line Extension Project proposes a terminus station on the West LA campus. This is also a component of the draft master plan. The graphic on the right shows, is from the draft master plan and shows transit-oriented development in this little purple bubble north of Building 500, the main hospital building. The other graphic is overview of the entire Purple Line Extension project, showing the VA station at the end of the line. VA is supportive of the project and is supportive of the opportunity to increase access to the campus for veterans and also the opportunity for veterans living in the 1,200 permanent supportive housing units planned for the campus to access other parts of Los Angeles. And VA is currently working with Metro to finalize that footprint of the station and analyze the impacts to the campus, and also ensure the project principally benefits veterans. So we are working with Metro to plan a joint town hall in the upcoming months where we'll provide more project details and yeah, more to come on this project. So I'll turn it back over to Ian.
Thanks, Andrew. Now I'll invite Heidi Marston, the Administrative Director of SERS, and Jessi Creed from Vets Advocacy.
Hello, we're here to talk about Triple H funding and give an update about some exciting stuff that's been happening on the campus. So as you may know, back in November, Angelinos voted in support of Measure H and Triple H for the city, which brings tax revenue in support of ending homelessness. So Measure H is really about initiatives and bringing new programming online. HHH is specifically about infrastructure and building in support of ending homelessness. So over the next 10 years, the goal of the county and the city is to bring 10,000 units of permanent supportive housing online and about $1.2 billion. So a lot of money coming in for new units across Los Angeles. And then Jessi is just going to give an update on some of the cool work that's been done to bring some of that money here to the campus so we can use it to renovate and build housing here for homeless veterans.
I have to have notes, unfortunately. But Jessi Creed, I was one of the attorneys for the plaintiff class in Valentini litigation, and now I work at Vets Advocacy, which is the vehicle that was created out of the settlement agreement to represent the plaintiff interests from Valentini and to partner with the VA to end veteran homelessness. So just a broad overview of who I am. So as Heidi mentioned, Measure H and Triple H, one of the things that we've heard again and again from the VA and from Congress basically, is that the federal government is not going to pay for everything that happens on this campus. So we made strides to reach out to the local government at the city and the county level to get them to invest in this exciting opportunity to end a crisis that's impacting the entire region. So with Measure H, that was the first stop. We ended up getting the county to agree to a policy that will bring funds to this campus to make sure that every homeless vet living on this campus gets the same amount of funding and services as any homeless person living out in the community. So they've agreed to basically top off whatever the VA is giving to the vets, the service providers here at the campus. That was consummated last September, and it was really exciting. Then with Triple H, that was a much bigger process. For anyone who has any complaints about the bureaucracy at the VA, I feel like the city government of LA might actually be a little worse. There are about 5 different layers of review you have to go through to get funding from the city. And we began this process last year. We met with the city council member who surrounds this campus, Mike Bonin, and he thought that there might be some legal issues we had to deal with the city attorney's office. So we went and spoke with the city attorney's office and got a good opinion from them that they can use city dollars on this campus. And then the developer has since applied for about $28 million worth of funds that would come to this campus to build homeless housing, which is really fantastic. There was some resistance, but we finally, I think, are on a path to getting the funding here. And that will really set a precedent for all future developments. The coolest part about that actually was there was a citizen oversight commission which is basically a group of citizens that have review and approval authority over what happens. And there were 5 residents from Building 209 who showed up at that Citizen Oversight Commission. And they spoke in support of this funding that would happen at 205 and 208. These are people who can't get around the city very easily. And they showed up and they spoke and they said, we want a community on this campus. Right now we're 54. If you give funding, we'll then be 154. And you'll set a precedent to eventually get to 1,200 units on this campus. And so that was a very marvelous thing to see and a great organizing effort. So that's pretty much it.
Yeah. No, I think also this funding has potential to streamline some of the work we're doing here, maybe make things go a little bit faster. It definitely makes the developer's job easier in securing funding. So it's good news all around, and awesome that we're able to partner with the city to bring funds to the campus and, you know, this collective effort to end homelessness in LA.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jessi. Thanks, Heidi. Last up, just wanted to call out some of the upcoming meetings. So in March of 2018, so next month, we'll have a public hearing on enhanced use leases. We'll have a joint VA and LA Metro town hall to discuss the Purple Line Extension project. And then Community Veterans Oversight Engagement Board, you'll hear folks say VCOEB, or you'll hear referred to as FAC, or Federal Advisory Committee. They're having their public meetings here on site in West LA in March as well. So all of that being said, what we'll do now is switch over to the question portion of the town hall. I'm going to introduce some folks who will be the panel members up here, and then I'll start to call out the numbers for questions. So I'd invite Ann Brown, Medical Center Director, Greater Los Angeles Healthcare System. Meghan Flanz, Executive Director of Master Plan. Mr. Jim Sullivan, Director of Office of Asset Enterprise Management. Mr. Glenn Elliott, Environmental Engineer. Mr. John Kay, VA Planning. Ms. Heidi Marston, Administrative Director of SERS. Mr. Reed Nicolosi, Office of General Counsel. And a surprise panel member, Mr. Tom Ruck. National Cemetery Director, Los Angeles. It's truly locked. 77. So I'd ask if you could stand up if your number is 77 or whatever the number on call is, stand up and we'll have a runner hand you a mic.
No questions at this time.
Terrific. 82, number 82. Up in front.
As the first person, I'm not really sure how this goes exactly, but I have a question around the veteran subpopulation. So I'm not sure who that would be on the panel, so I'm just going to put that out ahead of time. I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Kira Pollack. I'm the Director of Senior Services for the Los Angeles LGBT Center. So I came today because I wanted to talk a little bit about our work serving LGBT veterans in Los Angeles. So we've, over the course of 7 years, been expanding our work to LGBT-specific veterans age 50 and older, many of which are homeless and have extensive legal and social service needs. And I'm wondering, as this lawsuit had evolved and you were looking at those target populations, if you had looked at the needs of LGBT community members that are veterans and kind of looked at this campus in ways that you could enhance those service needs through housing and social services supports, and what, if any, ways we can partner with you on expanding those efforts.
Thank you for the question. Can you hear me okay? Okay. So I think that's an excellent point to make, and I think as VA across the system, that's something that we're looking at in all of our medical services, as well as specifically on this campus, is how can we better serve that population and what are the unique needs. One thing that's happened recently, I know here in Los Angeles, is we've assigned dedicated team members throughout our hospital system to be LGBT coordinators, to kind of be advocates and voices for those folks and really speak to those needs. So what we're working to do is identify the folks and then make sure that they have a seat at the table so we can address all of the needs that come about. And then just a quick shout out, because I know Shannon is here, and Shannon is actually one of our LGBT coordinators, and we would love to partner with you and talk more, because I think we have a lot of work to do. So meet each other at some point.
Thanks, Heidi. 87. 87.
87 passes.
All right.
I got 86.
84. Number 84. All right. 90. Number 90.
You say about closing our PTSD school. We got over 1,000 veterans going to our school. You're gonna bring us all to one room at 400, room 400 or whatever, 401. You got all these people. You're gonna tear down all the buildings at one time or what?
So we are assessing to make sure that there is appropriate space to move the PTSD group that is in the building that is next to be developed into an EUL, and to make sure that we find the right place for that group to meet. We know that as we develop the EULs and as we turn some of these buildings into permanent housing, that we're going to have to find new locations for some of our programs. We want to make sure that we provide the right space, the right amount of support for the programs that have been in the buildings that are up north on the campus as we move healthcare to the south part of our campus, with the vision of the north campus being residential in the community, and the south of campus to be where healthcare, the acute healthcare occurs. So yes, the plan is to move everything from the North Campus to the South Campus, that is, medical care, but we want to make sure that we do that the right way and have the appropriate space for it. So, yes, it's going to happen, but we haven't identified, we want to put it in Building 401, as you mentioned, but we need to make sure that the space is right, which is why we haven't.
All this sounds real good and stuff like that, but it's gonna take about at least, what, 8 to 10 years to do all this
Oh,
stuff?
no, sir. No, sir.
How many years?
Well, we're, what's the timeline on 205?
205, 208, 18 months.
Not 18 months, come on. You're gonna tear the whole building for 18 months.
No, we're not tearing the buildings down. We're retrofitting the buildings, and it's not a tear down and rebuild.
Well, 208 you already did, right?
No.
209.
No? 209? Oh, 209 you already did.
Right.
Anybody living in there right now?
54 formerly homeless veterans are living in Building 209.
54 veterans? For the whole building? 54 veterans.
Thank you, sir. 95? 95? Over here. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna call 2 out. We have 95? Go for it.
Hello, my name is Jason Poe. I'm from the UCLA School of Medicine. I just want to know if, can the panel talk a little bit about Zone 1, the medical center? I know in the master plan, it says here 450,000 square foot new bed care tower. And if that facility will include a spinal cord injury?
So I can talk about the spinal cord injury. We are a hub spinal cord injury site. Long Beach is a center, and we are a hub site. So the VA will support Long Beach as the center site, and we will continue to just have a hub site, but we will not become an SCI center.
Can I just ask a follow-up?
Sure.
And for Zone 1, what do you estimate the funding estimate? I'm sorry. For Zone 1, for my follow-up question, do you have an estimate for how much funding you need in order to make Zone 1 happen? And how many buildings will be included in Zone 1?
Zone 1 will be made up of multiple buildings and multiple projects that'll be moving forward for funding. Currently, right now, we have an estimate for a new inpatient building, or a new hospital building, which will be somewhere in the neighborhood of $1 billion at this point. We have some initial money that's been provided to start the initial work on that, but at this point, we still don't have the full funding for the hospital. Other buildings, as they become ready and available, and we complete all of the planning and all of the environmental work on the campus, we'll then queue up in the VA budget process other initiatives for the medical portion of the campus. So it is a significant undertaking, and it will be significant dollars.
Thank you. I'm going to call out 2 numbers. The first one, the one that's up next, and then I'll do it on deck. So 99 next, and then 80 on deck. All right.
How you doing? I just wanted to follow up in reference to the TRD center, where PTSD Clinic is. I'm trying to find out if it seems as though we have been told that we might be leaving there within the next few months. And like you said, there's about over 1,000 people being treated there. How do you guys plan to ensure that we have the privacy in Building 401 as we did in Building 256, especially with the thin cardboard partitions that you have in the big room that that's in 401? That's all I want to know. Thank you very much.
Sure. So that's why we haven't made the move yet. Is we haven't. I'm not convinced we have found the right location for that group. The group's not 1,000 at one time. It rotates through. So we need to finish the assessment. I can promise you I have received every one of y'all's emails. It's in a folder about this thick on my desk. and we will find the right place. Unfortunately, we are going to have to move, but we are going to find the right place on the South Campus to hold those meetings. You know, we may have to get creative with it, but we're going to ensure that you get the care that you need and that you desire, and continue to make sure that y'all can meet.
Excuse me, just a follow-up question. Is it possible that we can stay where we are now until you guys find another location, or until they start to break ground? Because, you know, from my understanding, the project is going to, for building 256, you're not going to have anyone housed there for 18, as he said, 18 months to 3 years. We're supposed to be leaving in the next few months. That's very inconvenient for everybody involved.
Well, we're gonna have to make the change. So, and it's 18 months to break ground, or it's done.
It's 205, 208, 18 months. We anticipate it being open.
Yeah. So we're going to work with you to find the right place and the right time. But the move's going to happen. So, you know, we'll make it work out so that it's as least disruptive as possible.
We understand that. We truly understand that. Yep.
Thank you. Up next, 00 on deck, 98. 00 up front.
Okay, just wondering if any thought has been had toward using the veterans on board who are residing here to help with this construction and remodeling. That's the first question.
It's a great question. For the permanent housing that we're putting on in the campus through the Enhanced Use Lease programming, that's a facet that we're going to do. In other projects that we have done in other states, we have had the development team ensure that veterans are part of the construction teams and part of the activation teams, both for job purposes and also potential job training purposes. We found when we bring that facet into the development, it moves much quicker, and there's a great rapport that's created between the operator and the developer and the veterans there. And just yesterday, we were meeting with our development team here in LA, and that very issue came up, and we're ensured that there are going to be steps taken to make sure veterans will get some of the jobs as these buildings are renovated, potentially some of the jobs when they're being operated, as well as the development team is looking at trying to find ways to connect veterans with other construction jobs that they're doing throughout LA and LA County, and they're in the process of connecting with the BPA office to try and identify veterans who could take advantage of that job training and job opportunity outside of the LA campus as well. It's a great question.
Next question.
Hey, Ernie, I just wanted to add too, because we have two answers to your question. So the other answer is for the veterans who are in 209. We've actually worked with Step Up and they've hired some of those veterans to work for Step Up. So they work in the building and then they also work for our programs.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, my next question
Only
is,
you get a 2 for Ernie.
say again?
Only you get 2 questions.
He's a veteran. He gets 2.
We're just teasing you, Ernie.
Oh,
You can have more
all
questions.
right. You would. Anyway, thank you, Ann. The second question is, we're building a new Columbarium, and as chair of the National Cemetery Support Foundation, I have a question. Thomas, has any thought, and I know it's far in advance, by the time they finish the 90,000 we have on slate. But after that, people, unfortunately, keep dying. Has any land north or south of that area, now designated, been thought of to continue the Columbarium or mausoleum?
Ernie, that's a very good, in fact, it's a great question. We anticipate usage in Columbarium somewhere around 24 to 2,600 burials per year. We look at that with 90,000 being our number, that we're going to be somewhere around 30 or 35 years that we'll be able to accommodate burials here at LANC at our Columbarium. However, your question is very valid. What do we do after that? There is an opportunity for us to look at some additional lands at this particular point in time. And in addition, we continue to expand Riverside National Cemetery, where we have almost 500 acres, okay? I'm not gonna say here what's gonna happen 30 years from now, because I probably won't even be here myself. But I can tell you that there is movements going on to look at where we need to be after that 25 or 30 year period of time that we will max out on the Columbarium here. Does that answer your question?
Not entirely, because I was wondering, as far as you're saying Riverside, well, right now we are saying, aren't we lucky you don't have to drive to Riverside to be close to your deceased? Now you're saying, after this is through, you guys can go to Riverside. I think that the land adjacent to the proposed, or the actual Columbarium that's built, I think that maybe some thought should be toward what happens after 2024.
Exactly, and beyond that, because we'll be going for 30 years. It's a difficult question because we're talking about blue sky and what if and where we're going to be 30 years from now. However, I do know.
If we left the red car in, we wouldn't be looking at building light rail systems.
Okay, I understand that, and that would be nice. But here's the issue. We're pretty landlocked around here. We do know that there's opportunities that may or may not come up. We're aware of those. At grade levels above me, they're looking at that opportunity now, because as we know, it takes a while. It just doesn't take 1 or 2 years for us to do something. This whole North Campus thing is going in at unbelievable speed because of the people here and their commitment to the West LA campus and the North area, what's going on. Same thing at the cemetery. The Columbarium is our first urban initiative in the United States. We realized that it needed to be the first urban initiative because Los Angeles County and Los Angeles City has the most veterans in America. We needed to be the first to provide that, so they didn't have to go to Riverside. Riverside will always be an option no matter if we have space here or not. As I said, there's 500 acres plus additional acreage out there that we'll always be able to use. The trouble here with the LA campus, we don't have the acreage. We are looking at it. As of now, I can't tell you if we're going to do anything or not, but it is something we are aware of. We are committed to looking at it and providing the proper burial spaces for the fine veterans here in the Los Angeles campus, in the Los Angeles area. Okay?
98 on deck, 96.
I'm trying to get more information on the renovation of the chapel and what the course is and how much money do you plan to spend on renovating the chapel?
Which chapel?
The chapel, the Catholic chapel.
So we recognize that that is a big check, and that it is difficult for the VA to be able to write that check. So we have entered into an agreement with the 1887 Fund to revitalize all 5 historic buildings on this campus, and the chapel is the first one. So the 1887 Fund that Ian mentioned earlier, that we've just renewed the letter of intent to keep the relationship going, is doing fundraising and is going to be the entity that provides the funding to revitalize the chapel.
Do you have any idea how much that would cost to revitalize it since it's not earthquake proof?
Right.
Yeah, 12 million was in.
Yeah, so, yeah, the estimates are upwards of $20 million.
Okay, so since that's the oldest building on Wilshire Boulevard, I think it's very important that people see this and people understand the spiritual side of being a veteran. And I think it's important. I've been pushing this for now 15 years, but I really appreciate you guys moving forward on that. I think it's important to the hearts of we who are veterans. And so, thank you.
Thank you.
76 and 97 on deck.
Hi, how are you? My name is Richard. I'm speaking on behalf of Building 256 and all the patients that get outpatient services there. What we're concerned about is that if we were to get moved to 401, it's going to cut half the programs in half. We're not going to have the accommodations that we have now. A lot of veterans here, they get a lot out of these classes. It helps them a great deal. We're asking that you find us an appropriate building before you move us from 256 to hold off for as long as possible, because a lot of these guys don't do change very well. You know, a lot of us are dealing with some severe PTSD issues. We're asking that you please keep that in mind, and please find us the appropriate building so none of these services are cut, because these veterans here, they need it and they got to have it continuously. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll run through the few I've called out. 76, 97, and I'll add 91 on deck. '76, 97, 91, 89.
Hi, good afternoon, Ms. Ann Brown. My name's Noya Giri, and I'm back here again. I know I was here when you first showed up, and it was pretty empty, so I'm really
And I'm still here.
I'm really happy to see a bigger crowd here, more interested in our veterans. I'm from Post 23 Palisades in the American Legion, and today I have a lot of questions, but I understand you might be visiting us soon, so we're gonna hold it to one, or maybe two. Child care being one that I'm gonna skip, and also the dog park at Barrington. Today, I'm here to talk about Building 208. There's some equipment there that was donated by some of my previous Legionnaires, and our new Legionnaires want to continue that, I guess, forward, that idea of having equipment, modern equipment, necessary for the building. I know 208's being relocated to 304. We have some Legionnaires that want to know why it's a lot smaller down there, it's darker, the equipment isn't going to fit. Is there some kind of adaptive equipment, or somehow we can find the location where we can fix this issue?
So there are two colored folders on my desk. One is the post-PTSD group, and the other is the gym. And what I have discovered so far, first of all, the VA GLA tremendously supports the support that we get from your post, and recognize that the equipment that was donated to be in that gym, came from your post. So I was hoping someone has already reached out to you to talk about how we're going to move it and what we're going to do. But if not, I'll be coming out there in a few weeks and we can talk some more about it. But that's another one of the moves that we're going to have to make. And but it's one of the moves that we haven't made yet, because I'm not sure we haven't come up with a really solid plan on where that's going to be. I've heard things about windows and the equipment. Some of the equipment we would love to update and modernize, and we can have some discussions about that. But it is also, it's like the PTSD group. It's something that I've heard. We haven't made any moves because I'm not convinced yet that we have made the right decision on where those things are going. So we continue to work on that.
Thank you. We'd like to be involved with probably modernizing SSV in a condensed space. Probably need better equipment that has multiple servitudes, not just one. So yes, keep us in mind, and we appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. 89, 93, and 73. 89, 93, 73.
73.
Good evening. My name is Terrence Lyons from the Strawberry Bulletin. My question is there any realistic chance that the VA can recover any of the money stolen by the parking concessionaire? And if it is able to do so, will that money be able to be used in master plan implementation?
So, can I do jump cartwheels back here? Because I'm with you 100%. It's been difficult to read those articles in the paper and to sit here in front of everyone and say that it's going to be okay, because it's not. The Department of Justice is leading that investigation. And that's about all I have to say about that. But I can talk about some of the things that have occurred and that we're doing, we're mandated to do to ensure that something like that doesn't happen again. I'll just say a few things and then others can jump in as I forget. But, you know, that is a huge black eye for Greater Los Angeles, and everybody knows that we lost the ability to do some enhanced use leases and do some other things because of what was going on. And as we have rebuilt the trust with Congress and hopefully with the community, we've been able to have some of those privileges back to do some of the things that we need to do to take care of homeless veterans. And but with that privilege also comes the responsibility of, when you're sitting in my chair, significant reporting requirements. So the OIG, the OIG is, I see the pluses and the minuses, but I'm all about the pluses because it continues to build the trust and the transparency of Greater Los Angeles. So the OIG was in the building just 2 weeks ago with more people than are up here on this panel, and they're not done. We have a call with them again tomorrow. They are doing their annual audit. They will do an audit every year. We reported at the first anniversary of the passing of the West Los Angeles Leasing Act, a congressional mandated report. Did I get that right? Yep. To Congress. And we're also built into some of the leases. We have a reporting requirement and an auditing requirement to ensure that there is transparency and that the veteran interest of these leases are maintained. So unfortunately, I can't give you an answer on if we're going to get any of that money back or what's going to happen. That really was taken out of our hands during the investigation. But I can tell you that I feel it every single day that everyone is watching, and we are doing absolutely everything we can to be transparent and move this forward and not get back into the situation we were before. And Megan's an attorney, so, you know, they said that, well, so we'll just, we'll get it together. So I hope that answers the question. And, you know, I think if I were sitting in the audience, that would be a big question that I had. We're glad that is out. It's past us. We are able to, all that land has come back to us, and we're able to now move forward and make it principally veteran focused.
Thanks, Ed. 85, 75, and 81.
Yes, thank you very much for this opportunity. My name is Jim Dwyer, and I'm a wounded Vietnam combat veteran. And importantly, too, I've devoted the last 43 years of my life to be a VA employee working with PTSD and substance abuse. So I come with some credentials, and I'm, thank you. Thank you. One is a concern that, and Director Brown may not know this, we've been told we're moving to 401. That will ultimately destroy our program. We have the largest PTSD program in the nation. We have 1,600 veterans. We have anywhere from 40 groups a week. We have 2 huge groups that are 35 years old and 37 years old. We have a wide range of treatment options for our veterans, and they're the reason we're here, and that's the reason I spent 43 years here. One of the concerns I have is that we've not been involved in these discussions. We're told to get ready to move in 401. And one of the things when I looked at the master plan, there's a provision there for coordinated services as a part of the community. And by the way, no one is against providing homelessness veterans. We need that. However, we're part of the community of veterans for both trauma and PTSD. And on the master plan, there's a core coordination provision that states that there will be some programs devoted to trauma and substance abuse within the community. So I'd ask the distinguished panel up there to comment about that.
So I don't know if I can say it another way, is that we haven't made the move because I haven't been convinced that that we have the right place to go. Okay, so, wait.
But I want to let you know something.
But, okay.
Our doctors have been told to get ready to move, and I was like,
Our medical doctors have been told to move, and some of them moved already.
Okay.
Our psychologists were called last week and told to get ready to go to 401.
Ultimately, we're going to move to the South Campus, and 401 is the logical place. But again, I haven't seen the assessment for where it's going, if it's the right amount of space. So you haven't moved yet. That's all I can say. Regarding the work in the community, Heidi can talk a little bit about the Center of Excellence that we're building, and we are working. We have several relationships with providers in the community, and that's what we want to expand on. That's what the master plan is going to give us the opportunity to do, is more community relations to ensure that veterans across the greater Los Angeles area can receive services, even if it's not from the VA, from our community partners. Our Community Veteran Engagement Board, I see several members here tonight, are helping us do that and make sure that we reach out to all veterans and use all avenues we can to take care of veterans. We can't, and you'll have all heard me say this before, the VA can't do everything ourselves and all by ourselves. So it's incumbent upon us, and I think with the master plan, it changes the way we in the VA have provided care traditionally, to reach out more, to find those opportunities to expand with our community partners and do things differently to take care of our nation's heroes. So you want to talk about the COE?
You can't dismantle what already works. That's the point we're making.
I've heard you, sir.
So one thing that we're working on in our partnership with UCLA is the Center of Excellence, and that center is going to focus specifically on homeless veterans who also have co-occurring disorders, whether it's substance abuse and mental health. It's going to research those components and build training, not only for our providers here on campus, but for our providers in the community. So I think what Ann's speaking about with having these programs in the community is awesome, because it creates a continuum of care for our veterans who might not want to be here on the campus. But the great news is that everything that we're doing here and all the great work and the knowledge we have is going to be shared with our community partners, so we know that folks across the board are getting the best care possible. So we're really excited for the COE to get up and running.
Awesome. Thanks, Heidi. Thanks, Ann. We'll check in with you, sir.
Yes, hello. My name is Greg Tully, and along with Phil Vandus, we're here to represent an organization called the Veterans Holiday Celebration. First of all, I want to say thank you before I forget for this town hall and this forums for us to discuss with you our issues. We have partnered, the Veterans Holiday Celebration has partnered with the VA, the West LA VA, and Voluntary Services for the last 25 years to host a party in December, every December for the last 25 years since 1995, where we provide a home-cooked meal from the community and music, entertainment, spirit for over 5,000 veterans and their guests. We accept active military, veterans of all races, ages, and many homeless attend. So we are open to everyone who has served in military service. So my question in terms of the master plan is, our organization, last year we lost our site because of the changes that are occurring on Lot 29. Tom Ruck is a good fellow of ours, and he has been very communicative with what we're trying to do and what we're trying to continue to do for the veterans. So this is more of a policy question. Is there, moving forward, will there be a opportunity for nonprofits such as ourselves to work with voluntary services to reuse the resources and the location on site, somewhere on site, to host our event in the future? And we're particularly looking at Lot 6, if possible. We know that Lot 29 is now out, but for an event our size, with our kind of build-up, we need to have a large space. And we also want to know if there is going to be language in the master plan talking about specifically entertainment and these kinds of events, and not for nonprofits. Thank you.
So thank you, and yes, we are working with many organizations. As long as we can demonstrate to the community how the events are principally veteran focused, and that so there was two things that were a concern this last holiday season. One, that was perceived to be a community event, not necessarily a veterans event. So that was one of the concerns that we had. The second one was the amount of support provided by VA staff, that we cannot support, even if it's a volunteer event, the overtime and paying out of our hospital budget to support a community event. So there's a couple of yes, we are doing a lot of things with volunteer groups who come in and do principally veteran focused events, but there are parameters, and there is, as I'm sure you're aware, I think you did a revocable license request, and that spells out how it's principally focused and the costs that would come to the hospital to support an event like that.
So in my follow-up, is there going to be specific language addressing these kinds of events and their allowability in the master plan itself, so that we can rest assured that our relationship will continue with the West LA VA?
Yes, and it is spelled out in the revocable license that everyone can get and go take a look at. It needs to, once again, be principally veteran focused, and it needs to be self-sustaining.
So we can fulfill both of those requirements.
Okay, well then, great.
Thanks, Ed.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
I have 81 here, I guess we missed her. Is it?
Perfect.
Hello, my name is Yelba Carrillo, and I'm the manager of social services for the Senior Services Department at the Los Angeles LGBT Center. And my question for you is, outside of the medical sphere, in what other ways are you attempting to address the issues that are uniquely to the LGBT veteran population?
So, you want to take that?
Shannon, do you want to speak to that?
We'll get the expert rather than...
Yeah, Shannon can talk about it.
So we have two LGBT veteran care coordinators here at West LA that cover pretty much all of GLA. So we definitely work on helping any veteran that has some issues that identify as LGBT. We also put on pride events and other kind of veteran-focused events. So we can talk offline a little bit if you want. So thank you.
And I also wanted to say, if time permits at the end, we brought one of our veterans here today to share his story, so we want to be respectful of everyone's time, but if there's time at the end, we would love for him to share it.
Awesome. And yeah, I think that's a good point, is talking about, it is about the medical piece, but the master plan talks a lot about building a community here, and that's a really big piece of it, so we're really excited to partner with you guys.
Thanks, Heidi. 88 and 78?
75. I'm doing 91.
You called 75.
Yeah, right.
take 75 right here.
Yes.
Take you next, sir.
This is just a follow-up to what Greg asked. And again, I would like to find out for sure. My name is Phil Banos, Secretary of VHC. Is there a specific location that you have set aside in the master plan for an event such as ours to be held? We just lost a big one that was held over the past few years because of the Columbarium extension. Is there a place that's set aside in language and in space for this type of event to happen?
So we will have a town center in the master plan when it is developed. Having a very large parking lot set aside for voluntary events, I don't think that is going to happen, but we can work through some of these issues with what's available at the time. What the campus is going to look like in 10 years is beyond my imagination. A lot of things are going to happen, and you know, not sure exactly when things are going to fall, but we will have a town center, and you know, we will do the best to accommodate volunteer activities on the campus that are principally veteran focused.
Follow up. I can understand your statement, but as a veteran and as a former resident of this campus, entertainment, and even the former secretary mentioned that housing and entertainment will be part of the master plan. But I don't see, and I've read your master plan through and through, there's no language there specific to entertainment. And I'm concerned that as years go by, we could easily be bumped out of this campus because of other interests. But if there's language there, then at least events like ours can be protected to service the veterans in the North Campus, not so much healthcare, but as part of the housing portion of the veterans.
So the draft master plan does call out a town center and amphitheater, both. And there are references in the draft master plan to entertainment, to arts, to things other than simply housing and healthcare.
I understand. An event like Gary Sinise's concert is perfect for the parking lot right there outside the baseball stadium. But for an event such as ours, just veterans alone is over 3,000. Volunteers alone are over 900. And last year, we invited active duty military and 4 generals from 4 different locations throughout Southern California responded tremendously and bussed in their troops, 1,200 active duties. So if you add that to the veteran population that's coming in, that's an event that holds about, plus the volunteers, 5,000. Is there a spot here that's big enough that we will not lose for this type of event to occur each year?
So I do want to flag for those who may not be aware of it. The draft master plan is a draft. Hasn't mapped out in great detail yet, because we're not there yet, exactly what's going to be where. It does call out the various types of activities and capabilities that we envision on the North Campus. So unfortunately, sir, I don't know that we can answer with great specificity where we might be able to accommodate 5,000 veterans doing, or 5,000 people doing anything in particular, because we're just not there yet. It's still a draft, but we absolutely, I think, share the vision that all of the activities that make up a neighborhood need to be accommodated on the campus.
Thanks, Megan. Thanks, Ann. Sir?
Hello, I'm a veteran, wounded twice. How many folks are up there? How many are veterans up there? Just 1? 2? How many lawyers do we have up there? We're in good hands, I can tell you that much. You know, you folks owe your jobs to us veterans that have been wounded many times.
what you guys are planning on doing is, it doesn't make sense, but for you folks, it does. Does Washington know what you guys are planning on doing? Have you even viewed, I mean, the gentleman, he's an attorney, but he said, well, we're gonna get, this is federal land. How can you mix the city of Los Angeles money with federal money? You can't do that. This is federal land. That's all I gotta say. Does Washington know what you guys are doing?
Yeah, in fact, we have a lot of people from Washington in the room right now, so it's perfect.
What about the president? Have you written to the president?
So what I would say though is that what we were talking about earlier, and I think one of the great ways that what makes this campus so unique is that we are able to leverage public-private partnerships to make things happen on the campus that we as VA can't do by ourselves. We don't want this to be an isolated area. We want this to be a community, and we want it to be a place where our veterans can be an active part of not only this campus, but all of the surrounding neighborhoods. So public-private partnerships, like partnering with the city to build housing for homeless veterans, is a perfect example of getting some of that flexibility so we can get greater benefits than we could just doing it as VA.
You know, I lived in Los Angeles my whole life. The city of Los Angeles is bankrupt. I don't know if you folks know that. Their pension plan is, you know, the state of California is 120 billion. The city is like $60 billion. And you're talking about going into business with them? Come on, folks, get with it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, hello. Hi panel, how are you today? My name is Jay Lopez. I have been in the U.S. Army for almost 8 years. I was in Desert Storm, Desert Shield in 90 and 91. I suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder. I'm also part of the PTS group at post over at 256. And I came here about 11 years ago. Started out in 212, which I don't know what happened there with the Salvation Army, but they're gone. I don't know what happened to everybody that was there, where they're going, or what's going on there now. And my concern is that there's a lot of people who go to these groups who find sanctuary there. This isn't just a building to us. This is our home. This is somewhere we've been going 2 times a week for the last 11 years, at least myself. And I speak for a lot of veterans in the back there who are part of my group. And unfortunately, this move has really brought a lot of my anxieties back, a lot of things that I'm going through. I've been trying to deal with a lot of doctors and counselors there at our group, and it seems to me that you guys think just moving us across to the street there to 401 is the answer. And I guess my question to you is that, well, they already asked if you guys are veterans or this and that, but my question is, if this building at 401 is so nice and all these nice things you guys are gonna put in there, and you know, we're gonna make it this and this for you, why can't we stay where we already are, where we feel we're at home with the doctors and the coordinators and everybody, that we already feel that this is our place where we go, and then you wanna put us over there. What is it that you're putting in 256 that you can't put in 401, if I can ask you that? Does that make sense? What is it that you have to put in our building at 256 that you can't put in 401, is my question.
So I think we've heard all of the concerns, and I think what the director has said before, and I think we'll continue to say, is we're wanting to make sure that, one, your concerns are heard, so I'm glad you guys are here raising it, and two, that we're addressing them. So after this, you know, I think this is something we're going to take back and talk more about to make sure that decisions are being made are the right decisions and that it's communicated. So I appreciate your comments, and we'll certainly, yeah.
No, but my question,
So you said 256. I thought we've been talking about 208.
No, ma'am. We're about 208. We're building 256. So you don't even know what building we're talking about now.
So yeah, so I've had it.
Look, we're the post group. There's about 1,300 veterans that come in and out of this building on a monthly basis to get treatment there. We suffer from something that you people will never understand that we suffer from. We've been through some war, and you guys don't understand that. You can't just come into somewhere and thank God that I've been able to keep coming to this program, because I'll tell you what, I'm married now for 1 year. This is my wife right here. And I'll tell you what, I wouldn't be married today if it wasn't for these people at this group that support me through everything that I've gone through. They got me back on my feet. I mean, I don't, not just thinking for myself, because I can walk away from here and probably be okay, but what about everybody else? What about all these other guys that just, I come in here to these groups, and if you guys could sit to just one of these groups, you would understand what we're talking about, and you would see the concerns that all these doctors, all these psychiatrists, all these people that come and support us, you would have a different idea of what we're facing when you say it's just taking us across the way and we're gonna make sure it's really nice for you and this and that. It's not that easy, guys. It's really not, you know?
All right, so I've had a misinterpretation of everything that's been said. We haven't made any moves. We're gonna take a look. It's a different story than what I thought 2 minutes ago.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I thought that would make it more clear. Thank you very much.
I am a Vietnam veteran with PTSD, and I would like to say first I get good care here, and I'm grateful for that. But I'm also concerned about building 256 in the sense that you know, we all agree that the plan to house 1,200 people is terrific, but I'm not clear on why it's why why we have to vacate immediately. Why can't we sequence the vacancies as you build up the buildings? Because you know, you have this mandate to get it done, I guess, but why can't we work on a real time as these things develop? Because I've seen these plans languish before, and by your own admission, you're not sure where you're going to put us yet, the director. And so, can we consider that at least? Not having an all or nothing plan for the vacating? I mean, we get just an undescribable benefit out of 256. It's the way it's set up with the day room and the kitchen and the whole staff, and it's an anchor for a lot of us. So I'd like to see if you could stage this instead of.
Right, we're going to look and do an assessment and see what the space is now, how many meetings when, and try to find the right answer.
Thank you. 05 and 07.
Hello, my name is William Relis. I'm a combat veteran. Who also has been wounded. And I want to thank you for having us speak today with you, the panel. As far as I'm concerned, I don't think I've seen any of the panel in our classes. So you don't know what a PTS group therapy class encounters. I toured the 401 area today, and there was indication that the upstairs was going to be our new home. 256 is our home. And if a lot of you don't understand what a PTSD soldier goes through, then a change will not be good. Trust me. My question to you is, can you have our social workers and doctors approve a facility for our transfer, if that's going to be the case, and have them approve it? Because I can tell you right now, seeing 401 upstairs is not going to do it. Thank you.
So, yes, we will, like I said, we're going to take a look at it. I have been through something very similar to this, not here at GLA, but in the past with a long-standing PTSD group, and I do understand the anxiety that this causes. We are not interested in disrupting lives. We're up here scrambling to find out what's really going on, because I was not correct in my assumptions. I do get it, because I have done this before, and I have done this with a PTS group that actually wasn't at the campus, but 100 miles away from the main campus. And we were successfully able to work that out. It was not an easy fix, and it wasn't something we did overnight. So I commit that we are going to look at this strongly and make sure that we find an equitable solution that is going to meet the needs of the veterans and the needs of the community of veterans as a whole.
Thank you for allowing us to be here again. It's a blessing to see what you guys are doing to West LA. You know, as a town hall meeting, going on 3 years where we had no voice, now we finally have a voice in sharing our thoughts about what we can do to work together to improve not only the VA, but the services for our veterans. And again, I just want to thank you for that. My question here, and I don't know if I missed it or not, is the environmental impact budget. I don't know what it is today, what our budget is facing right now, as well as what is the master plan budget that we're looking at right now. I have no idea what we're looking at and what's going to happen at the end of the budget. You just mentioned that the government is not going to fund maybe half of this money, and I don't know where it's going to go and what the final budget is going to be. But I just want to leave that in your hands. And another thing, now that these new housings are being built, you know, we were at 30% at the beginning of HUD-VASH housing, and then it jumped up to 40%, and I don't know if it's going to end up going to 50% of this new housing. I think we need to look into this because our veterans are on a set income, and they can only afford so much, and yet alone try to live in this economical crisis we're in is pretty bad. And I just want to say I hope we keep the percentage on the housing down. I don't know where the funding is going to go for the rent. Who is it going to be going to? The privatized industry? Is it going to be going to the VA? Or how is that money going to be allocated back into this facility right here? That's another thing. And one more thing, just want to mention on these jobs that they're going to be creating for construction. You said you were going to find a way to inform our veterans. I would like to know, how are you going to inform them? Are they going to be in a program? Are they going to have to be trained? We need to know ahead of time so that we can get our veterans to work. And again, I just want to thank you for this opportunity.
Sir, to address your first question, and then there's a couple there, but we want to make sure that we address them all. The first one you had brought up was the one about the environmental impact statement. Were you asking what the budget was for to study that?
What is it today? What is the budget? What is the budget today? What are we looking at right now that everyone is doing their environmental impact and making a decision on, you know, how much the cost is? That's what my concern is what are we looking at now? What is the master plan budget? Do you have a number right now? Because I don't have it, nor do I know more or less what we're looking at.
So as I understand it, you want to know what the estimated cost would be for a full build out of the master plan?
Well, if you have it.
Yeah. That's something at this point in time, we're still developing the master plan as I think it was Meghan said, it's the draft master plan. So as that is developed, that is a number that is developed along with it.
And then I just want to address your question also about HUD-VASH. The percentage of your income that goes or is taken away when you have a HUD-VASH voucher is determined by HUD, but I haven't heard anything about that changing from what it is. So I would assume that you're safe for now, and we'll let you know if we hear anything. And then for the job piece of it, we actually have programs here on campus that are employment focused. We have compensated work therapy programs, back to work programs. So those programs really work with veterans who are on campus and in the community who are interested in getting back into the job force, making sure that everyone has the skills they need, the resume skills, the interviewing skills, and really do that hands-on training, just like you said, to make sure that when they get back to work, they're successful and doing something that they love. So we're big fans of the employment programs.
Maybe we can talk a little bit about the budget. As Glenn said, as the environmental impact process proceeds and we bring that to conclusion in the next year or so here, we will identify specifically what the actions are. Most of those actions will require funding from VA through the federal budget process, so we will have to ask Congress for that money to be able to do that construction, repairs, renovations, road work, whatever that may be, for projects basically on the medical side of the campus. Knowing that that is a large amount of money, and knowing that
There are limited resources. The housing is being done by doing public-private ventures with others to leverage whatever funding is available in the community, at the state level, and utilizing private sector money to build the housing and then to operate that housing with either, mostly with nonprofit organizations running those as operators. So, I mean, we're trying to pull from all the different sources to revitalize the campus, but I want to be transparent that when we're looking at the big dollar items, they will have to go through the federal budget process and be approved and appropriated by Congress. Once the master plan is done, that lays out a blueprint, but it does not mean the funding is there yet. The next step in that would be get funding through the budget process.
But also, partnerships with.
Right, as well as the housing side is with the ULs, which is not required to go through the federal budget process because we would be using basically private sector financing to finance those. That's why those can move so much, quite honestly, quicker. And that's what we are aggressively trying to move to provide as much housing as we can sooner than if we actually did it ourselves. If we had the authority, which we don't, it would be much longer. So that's why we're seeing as much progress as we can to put as much housing in place as soon as we can for our veterans.
Thank you. Just so folks are aware, we have about 3.5 minutes left, so we're going to take 2 more questions. I have the one in the back, and then I'll call out another number for the last question.
My name is Kylie. I'm here on behalf of my boss, Michael Haas, at Platinum Black up in the Brentwood Village. We have concerns over if there's any plan in place to monitor the VA lot on Barrington that unfortunately that situation happened with. The local businesses there are suffering because there's no monitoring of that lot. There's lots of parking by students at the Brentwood School and the Archer School. We're also seeing a lot of car theft up there and also a lot of drug paraphernalia in the local lots. So we're just wondering if there's any consideration to maybe employ some of the veterans there and get that going back again so that our businesses aren't suffering up there.
Thank you very much for that question. We are aware of the problem. In fact, several of us met earlier this week with a couple of folks representing the business community up there. They were concerned. For those who aren't aware of kind of how we got here, the management of those lots was under the purview of Westside Services, the organization that was run by the gentleman who has since been indicted for siphoning money away from the federal government. So that relationship has been terminated. There is a solicitation about to go out for a long-term solution with another management company to manage those lots. What we need in the interim is a short-term solution to get at the problems that you're describing, where the arm is up and there's no management of who comes in there. And so we had a wonderful conversation earlier this week with some folks representing that community about what that interim solution might look like, what it could look like. They are going to come back to us with some of their ideas about how to get there quickly. So absolutely feel the same sense of urgency that you do about trying to restore some order up there short term while the longer term solicitation plays out.
Do you have an idea of when we'll have some sort of information or?
We are actually waiting for information back from the folks representing that business community with sort of their ideas about some existing capabilities that could be brought in there to manage short term.
And will that go to the village employees and the businesses there? Will they be notified through the Brentwood Chamber of Commerce, or is that going to come
That's who
directly
we're
through you?
working with, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Megan. And last question number I have is 79. 79. 06. '94.
Good evening, sir. First of all, I'd like to greet good evening to our lady director, Ms. Brown, and distinguished ladies and gentlemen of the panel. Thank you for coming. Sir, my questions regarding healthcare. I am a U.S. Navy corpsman who saw combat with the United States Marine Corps. I earned 28 medals in combat and ribbons with 3 combat action ribbons. I have both torn rotator cuff tears and injuries to my hands that need surgery. I waited for 3 months to get surgery at the Building 500, but a day before my consultation, I was told the doctor was not available. My question is, first is, what is the policy now? Are we allowed to have surgery outside of the VA, like public, private doctors? And secondly, I would like to address the Building 500. Whenever we call, it takes more than 30 minutes or sometimes an hour to be put on hold. We would appreciate it as veterans if whenever we call the different departments of Building 500 that they answer the call quickly. Thank you.
So let me address the first question. Yes, if the VA, if GLA cannot provide the service that you need within 30 days, or you live 40 miles away from a VA medical center, we can provide that care in the private sector so that you can get it quicker or closer to your home. So yes, that's called the Choice Act, or the Choice Program, and that is out there for your use. So if you were waiting 90 days for surgery, we should have offered you the opportunity to go get that care in the community. Regarding the second on the phones, yeah, I hear you. Our phone are probably the bane. Well, it is a problem that we have. We've worked hard in our call center and made substantial improvements in it, but it still is not good. And then you say you're calling inside into the medical center directly to the clinics, and we have some real problems with getting the right phone numbers and making sure that there's someone there answering the phone. So we hear you, we know we have a problem, and we're working on fixing those problems. We're making strides, but it's still not good enough. And those two questions, quite frankly, are very closely tied. If you can't call us to get access to medical care, you can't get medical care, and if you can't get it timely, we need to provide you the opportunity to go in the community. So it's an important thing for us to continue to work on. Access is by the time you come in, if you've been on the phone for an hour, no matter how good the medical care is, or if people are smiling or not, you're angry, and it's not a good way to deal with your health care. So we're working on it, and that's
Thank
a
you,
very
Madam
high
Director.
priority.
Ma'am, I also would like to take this opportunity to let you and the panel know I'm a patient at the VA domiciliary. We want to let you know how good our Lady Director, Guerra, and the staff of the domiciliary are doing, especially the combat track. Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining tonight's town hall.